Good evening, retired Brigadier Mr. David Granger, and welcome to our studios once again. It's a pleasure to have you here with us.
It's a pleasure for me to be back. Thank you very much.
So, we want to start this evening by learning a bit about you. Who is David Granger?
David Granger is a mature person who has gone through several professions. I started off as a military officer. Then I set up my own company as a publisher. I was briefly an academic. I lectured at the university overseas. And now I'm a politician. So I've gone through four stages of life. I was actually born in Rheinveld in Georgetown, but I grew up in Bartica. Then I came to live at Wim on the quarantine. Then I went to Georgetown. So I touched what was then called three counties, Essequibo, Berbice, and Demerara. And that's about it. I am a Guyanese. I have never migrated from Guyana. I never will. So this stage of my life, I've committed my complete energy towards creating a government of national unity. So that's who David Granger is.
Okay, so with that said, you would be bringing a wealth of knowledge and experience if elected. Now,
And vision.
and vision. We've noticed a decline in morals in the society and in Guyana particularly. What would you say are your top five core values and how would this influence your leadership?
Well, my top value is the value of education. I feel that every Guyanese should have access to the best education. And I think that's the most important thing in my work to make sure every child is in school. The second important value, I think, is the value of family. I think that people who are uprooted from families would have a more difficult time in becoming members of society. So I like to do as much as possible to preserve families, certainly the mother-child relationship, and if possible, the nuclear family, father, mother, children. And in that regard, I believe that the eradication of poverty is the third most important. And when people are very poor, they have very limited choices. And they may not be able to choose to live in a good area, to take their children to school, or maybe to feed their children properly, or to allow their children the best entertainment, sports, and so on. And I would like to feel that the eradication of poverty is very important for me and for the party that I belong to. I think also I would mention that personal freedom is important. The various ethnic groups that came to Guyana all struggled to be free. The Africans fought to be free. The Indians came, they worked on the plantations, they wanted to be free. And they got their freedom from indentureship. Portuguese were once indentured, they were free now. Chinese were once indentured, they're free. The indigenous peoples too were once treated as children of the forest, but now they have been able to set up their own free villages. So I think that personal freedom and the resistance to dictatorship are very important values in Guyanese society. Have I reached 5 yet?
No.
One
But
more?
we're going to.
Well, let's leave it at
Yes,
that for the
yes.
time being.
Good.
Okay.
Now, the role of president requires decisiveness. What will inform your decision making?
Well, my values. I am not guided by, a sort of, it's not as if I'm without a vision. I know where I want to go. That is, I want to see Guyana united and strong. I want to see a government of national unity. I want people to have what I call a good life. I do believe that there is enough in Guyana to satisfy everyone's need, but there'll never be enough to satisfy everyone's greed. And I'm driven by a concept of equity. I do believe, given the fact that all Indians, all Africans, all Chinese, all Portuguese in our country, all Amerindian people, were once very poor, but they've only been able to lift themselves out of poverty because of equal opportunity. everyone had the opportunity to go to school, to live in communities, and to share in a democratic system of governance. So I do believe that that is what drives my vision. And when I become president, I will make sure that those values are not only enshrined in the policies of my government, but on a day-to-day basis, they are implemented in the sense that people must be allowed to make choices. And those choices are exercised in their trade unions, in their political parties, but most important, they are protected by the institutions of state, National Assembly, judiciary, independent institutions like the Ombudsman and so on.
Okay.
So my mission is not only driven by a vision, it's also driven by the need to protect those institutions. And if those institutions are knocked down, well, society is knocked down.
Okay, well said. Now, Guyanese seems to have a lack of faith in politicians on the whole.
Not me, other politicians.
What are the first three things you're going to do to raise Guyana's confidence once you're in office?
Well, the most important thing is to demonstrate to the public that we are going to fulfill our promises. In a place like Berbice, for example, I would say that my first commitment to Berbicians and to current team is to make this region safe. Having grown up at WIM and seeing what I see now, the piracy, reports of banditry, attacks on businessmen, murders of young women, murders of old women, traffic accidents, rate of fatalities, I would say that given the time that I grew up in the quarantine and what I see now, quarantine has become unsafe. And I would say that one of my top priorities for this region would be to make Region 6 safe. I meet people in the diaspora from Region 6. They want to come home, but they wouldn't come home if they feel this region is unsafe. This region, along with Region 5, Mahika Berbice, is losing people. Region 6 is losing, their population actually falling.
Yes.
And it is falling because people feel unsafe. And I'm committed. I met them in Brooklyn, I met them in Queens, and if they are convinced that there's a government in this country that is going to make Region 6 safe, they're going to come back. So that is my topmost commitment to this region. Secondly, I want to stimulate the economy. That is, as I mentioned this evening at the rally, there are only two Caribbean states. There are only two CARICOM states which share a border, Guyana and Suriname. And there's only one part of Guyana which shares a border with another CARICOM state. That is East Berbice Quarantine, Region 6. I do believe that with good leadership, East Berbice Quarantine could be a commercial dynamo, a commercial vanguard in trade with Suriname. Legitimate trade, of course. And in so doing, I would like to develop the economy of Berbice. Berbice is the rice bowl of Guyana. It is the sugar bowl of Guyana. It produces more fish, cattle, coconuts than any other part of Guyana. And we feel that the economy of Berbice could be more prosperous. You don't need poverty and unemployment in Berbice. And that is my commitment, to build a strong economy. But to build a strong economy, you need to protect the farmers, fishermen, who themselves are contributing to the economy. The third thing I would like to see after I become president is a strengthening of the education system. I meet people, I've done walkabouts in Port Morant, Rose Hall, Corriverton, elsewhere. I've had meetings, East Bank, Berbice, Central Quarantine. And I've met young persons who've graduated from the Tain campus of the University of Guyana who can't get jobs. And some of them, even in pizza shops, some of them are just selling pizzas. They've got 8 or 9 subjects at CXC. They can't get employment. I feel that we need to look at the education system and give them the type of education which suits their employment. In so doing, I have committed myself to setting up what I would call a Berbice Agricultural Institute, so that we can move from our primary schools into something like secondary schools into what I would call agro-processing.
Okay.
So every commodity, if you produce sugar, you can make candy. You don't have to be satisfied with selling raw sugar. If you produce rice, you can produce rice cereals, rice cakes, which could be packaged and sold. If you produce plantain, plantain chips. If you produce milk, you can make yogurt, you can make milkshakes, you can make ice cream, you can make evaporated milk or condensed milk. But we need to educate our young people. We need to give them the equipment. You need to give them the knowledge which could enable them to process the products which you already have in Region 6. So those are the things I would like to see happening after I become president. I want to see Berbice becoming more prosperous, and I want to eradicate poverty in this region.
Okay. Coming back to the first thing that you said, security, securing Berbice. How exactly do you propose to do this? Because we hear a lot of politicians saying, okay, security is our top priority, but we're not hearing how is this going to get done.
You didn't hear it from me. You might have heard it from other politicians who are not serious. I'm serious about security. I'm serious about building the type of police force which can make Berbice safe. If you know the police force has got no boats, they can't catch the pirates.
Okay.
If they got no planes, they can't patrol the coastline. If they don't have boats, they can't go up the river, where you all produce some of the finest ganja in Guyana, I understand. You have to make the police force mobile. You have to give them the assets which allow them to move about this region. It's a big region. This region is bigger than Belgium, the country of Belgium. If this region was an island in the Caribbean, it would be more rich and prosperous. So we need to also ensure that the police are better paid. Now, I was a member of the Discipline Forces Commission 11 years ago, and that is one of our recommendations: pay the police better.
Okay.
If you pay the police peanuts, you're going to get monkey work out of them. And that is part of the problem. The police are badly paid. The other problem affecting the police, they're under strength. As I said, this is a big region. And sometimes, as happened on the quarantine last December, a businessman and his family were under attack, and over an hour elapsed before the police showed up. Sometimes the police cannot leave the stations because there's no one to relieve them. They don't have transport, the phone's not working. So I know what is needed to fix the police force, and I'm going to provide the resources. I'm going to give them the tools to do their job, to keep you and Dave TV safe.
Okay. Now let's look at this big word, corruption. Corruption has become synonymous with Guyana.
No, with the government.
Now the government represents Guyana
No,
because...
not always.
Okay.
Anyhow.
Let me put it this way.
Mhm.
Corruption has become synonymous with the government of Guyana,
All right.
which has not learned to separate state from other facets of society.
Mhm.
So we have public offices where you go for simple services and the order of the day is to pass a bribe. How do you propose to eradicate corrupt practices from every facet of society?
Well, eliminate, it could be eliminated by paying attention to the needs of the public services. Now, I mentioned the police just now.
Yes.
If you pay the police badly, they will expect bribes. I've met policemen in different parts of the country. They have families, they have to support, they have children. Sometimes they're far away from their families. They have to buy food at an expensive rate. And you pay them $57,000 a month, you're begging for trouble. It's just not enough. Similarly, there are other branches of the public service. And let me tell you this, in 1999, there was an 8-week strike in Guyana by the public service. And as a result of that strike, there was something called the Armstrong Tribunal, which ordered or recommended that the public servants be paid at a certain rate. Up to now, they have not received that rate of pay. But let me tell you this, what happened is that from 1999, the government has stopped negotiating with the Guyana Public Service Union. Every Christmas, they would give the public servants a freck. This does two things. One, the freck is not enough, so the public servants are dissatisfied. Two, they treat the union, the public service union, with contempt, so the public servants are doubly dissatisfied. So this is what creates the atmosphere for graft and corruption. You have a dissatisfied public service, you have dissatisfied policemen, you have dissatisfied mines and forestry officers. David Granger administration will sit down with the GPSU. We will reintroduce collective bargaining so that the public servants are satisfied with the outcome of the process. Right now, before you pay that bribe, ask the public servant why he's taking the bribe. And you may learn about some of the problems which have existed in the public service for the last 23 years under the PPP administration. We've got to stop treating like the public servants as if they are, domestic workers and cleaners. These are intelligent people, university graduates, who are guiding the affairs of state. And if you treat them badly, the state will run badly. So, corruption among public officials could be dealt with a government that is concerned about the morals, about the values, about the training, and about the administration of the public service. There are other areas of corruption, and these areas are fostered by politicians who themselves are weak or corrupt. Even if politicians are well paid, some of them have a propensity to become super rich. And that is a problem. As I said before, there is enough to satisfy people's need, but it's not enough to satisfy people's greed. And what has been happening is some politicians have been bending the rules in order to engage in corrupt practices. I meet miners, I meet villagers in communities who tell me that foreigners or certain persons in the community are treated preferentially. They're given favors to which they're not entitled because they might be involved in paying a bribe. This is not police level now. This is not civil servant level. These are the big boys who are demanding millions of dollars in kickbacks. That is why sometimes a road is built, a stelling is built, and you find that the road cracks up after a few weeks or months. You find the stelling collapses. And when you investigate, you see that the contractor did shoddy work because he had to pay some big official a fraction of the money that was to be paid for the contract. All over the country, you see public works collapsing because they were not properly done in the first place. So corruption has to be uprooted not only at the level of the small, lowly public servant, but also at higher levels. And that is why we need a change in government so that you can elect people who are unlikely to be corrupt. People who are not only experienced, but people who have a vision of a safe and secure Guyana and are not prepared to sell out the people of this country in order to enrich themselves.
You mentioned the phrase people who are unlikely to be corrupt. Is there any guarantee for Guyanese, for the electorate, that that is the case with the APNU AFC coalition?
Yeah, you look in the guarantee now. I'm your best guarantee. If anybody working with me is corrupt, he'll be out of the window.
Right away.
Right away.
We won't have to hear, the person was sternly talked to, and then,
No.
after a while, we pressure you and then you decide to relieve them of their duties.
No, you wouldn't hear that.
Decisive action.
Anybody who is corrupt, who engages in corrupt practice. In fact, I've already drafted the code of conduct for ministers
Okay.
and MPs, yes. I'm
That's
serious about
interesting to note.
I'm serious about eradicating graft and corruption.
Okay. Now, on a lighter note, it is very annoying for me personally to have to go to Georgetown for everything. I have nothing against the capital city, but if I need to apply for a passport, if I need a simple press pass, I have to go to Georgetown. Why is this so?
It is so because we have in this country a government which does not recognize the importance of the regions. I regard a region in Guyana like you regard a state in the USA. There must be a strong regional capital. And if you've listened to some of the speeches I've given in other areas, Anna Regina, for example, Linden, I want to see a strong capital. You must have all of the services that are required in that capital: NIS, good banking system, good courts, good law enforcement agencies, good transport services. And I agree with you. You should not have to transact those businesses in Georgetown. And that is one reason why I have recommended, I've advocated, and I've promised the four hinterland regions, Barima Waini, Kuyuni Mazaruni, Patara Sipaluni, and Rupununi region, that the four administrative centers must become towns. You all are lucky, you all have 3 towns in this region, and some regions have none. So I want to see, not only in New Amsterdam, but also in Mabaruma, Madia, Lethem, and Bartica, strong institutions so that you can transact your business right here without traveling to Georgetown. I understand how you feel, but people in all of the other regions have said the same thing. I want to see a good airport so people can fly in from Suriname, fly in from Barbados, right here in Region 6 and do business. I want to see a sports center so that sports people don't have to go to Georgetown, to the stadium. You can have something like a stadium. You all have some of the most famous cricketers, not only in the country, not only in the region, but in the world. And you don't have a cricket stadium here. You all should be able to bring international limited overs competitions to this region. So I want to see a strong Region 6. I want to see a strong capital. I want to see strong institutions. Not only law enforcement, not only criminal justice system, but also entertainment, also commercial. And I want to see Berbice becoming like a state. I'm not advocating that you all should seek independence.
Well, it depends on how your presidency goes.
No, my presidency will be an inclusive presidency. So what I want to see is that you are free from the restrictions, you're free from the obstacles, from the impediments to growth. And that is what I want to see emerging out of this great region. As I said before, you're as big as Belgium. I want to see you as rich as Belgium.
Now, another burden we as Guyanese bear is taxes. We seem to believe we pay too much taxes, but we don't mind if we receive value for our money. What would an APNU AFC government do differently?
Well, first of all, we have to deal with tax evaders. The reason why, or one reason why tax burden is so heavy is because the tax net only captures a few, and many people escape from the net, through smuggling. Is there smuggling in Barbados?
I wouldn't be able to say.
Can't say, Okay. Once you have tax evaders, the burden of taxation falls disproportionately on the people who pay. For example, public servants. They can't escape. Sugar workers can't escape because they have to pay PAYE. The taxes are deducted. But there are unscrupulous people who don't work with the state, who are capable of avoiding taxes. So one, we have to make the tax system more efficient. Two, I promise you that we will reduce taxes once the collection system is more efficient. One is the value-added tax. It is too high. And APNU and AFC have committed to reducing the value added tax. We will also lower the PAYE or raise the threshold so that persons on earning less than $100,000 would not have to pay. This is something that we've committed, and I will honor that commitment. It means that they will be getting just enough to survive, because if a woman gets a baby, you can find out from her easily how much it costs to maintain that baby, transportation, sending children to school. So we feel that that is a reasonable threshold. So, in short, we will have a more efficient tax system which will enable us to lower the taxes by spreading taxation among more Guyanese citizens. Sometimes, because of evasion, as I said, the weight of taxation falls heavily on some persons and likely or not at all on other persons. So that is our main change. As you know, President Ramatar promised to set up a tax reform committee. He has not done so. We are going to establish that committee so that even businessmen, young persons like yourself, you may want to open like a television studio or an internet cafe. We will lower the tax ceiling so that you get maybe tax holidays to enable you to set up your business. So the tax system has to be revised, it has to be reformed in order to promote business, prevent evasion, and increase the amount of money that's available for development.
Okay. I'm glad that you mentioned what you would want to do for the youths, because the youths are the future leaders of tomorrow. The youths are the leaders of today, frankly speaking. And I would like to know what an APNU AFC government would do in terms of providing house lots, making it more easier to receive as a youth. From personal experience as a youth, when I applied for a house lot, because of the fact that I'm single, I'm not married, I don't have kids, I was put on a very long waiting list. It took me 3 years. And the reason being is that they were telling me that, okay, if I was a single parent and I had 3 kids, then I would qualify for low income house lots, and then it would be fast tracked. Now, for those youths who want to do planning, family planning, that would want to establish themselves, acquire assets before they go and produce kids, it's a bit of a damper to hear that, okay, if I had 3 kids and as a single mother, then I would have a house lot.
Well, you know, in government, in any aspect of life, people have to make choices. And when resources are limited, and resources are always limited, priority has to be given to persons in greatest need. I'm just trying to explain what might have been the thinking behind that policy. But I would say now that we do not have a specific policy to give single women house lots. What I'm saying is that a person with a family certainly has a greater need for housing, and that is the reason for prioritization. But it is our view that there is sufficient land in Guyana, and housing is a key element of our social policy and economic policy. I do believe that persons who live in independent homes are likely to be more productive citizens than those who are forced to live, you know, maybe 12 or 15 people in a room or in a house, because it'd be too noisy, you know, it would be conducive to study and to family life. So the value of housing is recognized by APNU AFC, and we are going to continue the search to increase the lands that are available for housing. And in time, I'm sure that single career women like you would be able to get houses. But right now, I'm not in government. I'm just assuming that the government has decided on a policy which gives the greatest opportunity to the people with the greatest need.
I see. Okay, as we approach closer to election date, May 11th, what are the keys to translating your vision for Guyana's future into actions?
Well, I'm translating it right now by broadcasting to the citizens of Region 6. But We are going to create a government which is efficient, which is balanced, which understands the need for rounded development, economic, political, social, and cultural. And we are going to ensure that the regional system too. Remember, these are general and regional elections, so the regional system too has to have competent RDCs, councillors in the RDCs. We will have many tasks ahead of us. For example, the present government collects revenues from timber industry, from the mining industry, from lotto and other sources, but does not put those revenues into what is called the consolidated fund. And as a result of that, the monies are not examined or determined, expenditure is not determined by the National Assembly. That is why the government could go and build something like the Marriott Hotel without the permission of the National Assembly. So we need to bring all governmental revenues under the control of the National Assembly through the consolidated fund. So I promise you that an administration led by me is going to be more law-abiding.
Okay.
That is, right now, the present administration is breaking the law. And it is because it is breaking the law that APNU and AFC decided to bring a motion of no confidence. And for 10 months, Parliament has not met. Nowhere else in the Western Hemisphere that could happen. The PPP has behaved in a dictatorial manner by not allowing Parliament to meet for 10 months. So what you will see after the 11th of May with an APNU AFC administration is a lawful government, one that does not prorogue Parliament, one that collects money and spends it in accordance with the will of the National Assembly. And you will see a cabinet which takes its instructions from the National Assembly. You know, government in the West is divided into three sectors. One is the legislative, which makes the laws. Second is the executive, which executes the laws. And third is the judicial, which interprets the laws. We are going to have an executive, under my leadership, which executes the laws which were made by the legislative branch. What we have, or what we had in the 10th Parliament, is a legislative branch which attempted to dominate, an executive branch which attempted to dominate the legislative branch. And although the legislative branch was passing laws by a majority, we had an executive led by President Rabatar who refused to implement those laws and decisions. That was the problem of the 10th Parliament. And you're not going to have that in the 11th Parliament as long as the APNU AFC has a majority.
Okay. This may sound as a weird question, but is there anything that could cause you to fail as a president?
As a president?
Yes, as the president of Guyana.
I can't imagine, because I will be supported by the majority of the people, and I'm not going to let them down. I'm going to remain in contact with them. And let me tell you this year alone, I've been in over maybe 10 or 15 villages in Rupununi alone. I've been in every single region of this country. My ideas, my vision comes from the people. It doesn't, I don't lie down in a hammock dreaming up things to do. I go visit and I see the conditions under which people live. So when I become president, I will remain in touch with the people. I've never really divorced myself from the people. And I don't see that they would obstruct my government. When they no longer want me, I will walk. It's just like a batsman. You hear the click of the bails. You don't have to look. You just walk. And when I hear the bails, I will walk. And they'll put somebody who they feel is better. But right now, I think I'm the best.
Okay.
I'm the best person to lead the country.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us in our studios. We very much look forward to the results of this year's elections, and we hope that you are successful in your bid for the presidency.
Thank you very much. I hope to fulfill your hopes and dreams.